This is finding percentages using multipliers. Now, consider the example, find 50% of 24. One way I could do this is to recognise that 50% is just to half. So finding 50% is just the same as halving 24. So just by inspection, I can tell that the answer to this is going to be 12. However, we're going to look at a different strategy which really lends itself to more difficult percentages. So maybe ones that we can't work out with a simple rule of halving, or 2 divided by 4 in the case of 25%. This is to use a multiplier. Now this will really lend itself to questions where we have a calculator as well. It'll make the questions a lot more efficient. Now I just want to consider the 50%. If I take 50%, just remember that 50% can be expressed as a fraction, 50 over 100, which can also be expressed as a decimal. So either of these expressions are equivalent to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my 50% into its decimal equivalent. So instead of saying 50%, I can rewrite that as 0.5. Now if you remember back to when we dealt with fractions, this word of, we can express the word of as a multiplication. So we get 0.5 multiplied by 24. And just bear in mind 0.5 is half, so we know this is still saying a half of 24. However, if I have my calculator, all I need to do now is just type in exactly as I see here, 0.5 multiplied by 24, and I get 12. Now we'll look at a few examples where a multiplier is really going to help us out, make things a lot more efficient. So example 1, we want to find 86% of 24. Now recognise that 86% is not a simple percentage to find out. So we would have to do a selection of steps to work out 86%. However, with a multiplier, we're going to make things a lot easier. So I first need to work out what multiplier it is I'm going to use. So to find 86%, well, I know that 86% can be written as 86 over 100. And therefore my decimal equivalent would be 86 divided by 100, which is 0.86. And in future I will miss out the fraction step and go straight to the multiplier. So to find 86%, all I need to do is multiply by its decimal equivalent, 0.86. Therefore, 86% of 24 is equal to 0.86 multiplied by 24. And now we can just immediately type and now we can type exactly what we see there into our calculator. So 0.86 multiplied by 24. So our answer comes out to be 20.64. So a lot more efficient than breaking down percentages into blocks and then rebuilding back up our 86%. So example 2, find 124.5% of 360. First step is let's work out what multiplier we're going to use. So 124.5%. Well, to go from our percentage straight to our decimal, we're going to miss out our fraction part. We just divide by 100. So this gives us 1.245. And remember, you have your calculator anyway, so you could do that on your calculator as well. Therefore, my calculation becomes 1.245 multiplied by my original amount, which was 360. And if I type that exactly into my calculator, I get 1.245 multiplied by 360, and that gives me 448.2. So the second types of examples are going to be percentage increases and decreases using multipliers. So again, we have a calculator that we can use. So the multiplier method is a really effective method when we have a calculator. So again, our first step is to work out what multiplier we're going to use. So the first thing is to work out, if we increase an amount by 50%, what new percentage will we have? So if I take my original quantity, which is 100%, and I add on, so I increase by 50%, then my total amount is 150%. So I'm working out 150% of the original amount, and from there I can change that into the multiplier, the decimal multiplier we're going to use. So remember from previous, what we do is we divide by 100, so we get 1.5 as a decimal. Therefore, to find a 50% increase, I just need to multiply by 1.5. So 1.5 multiplied by 62. I type that into my calculator exactly as I see that. Gives me 93. So for example 4, decrease 300 by 24.5%. So the first step, again, is to work out what multiplier I'm going to use. So I always start off with my original amount if it's an increase or decrease. So my original amount has been decreased by 24.5%. So I'm decreasing, I'm subtracting 24.5%, which leaves me with a percentage quantity of 75.5%. And then I'll convert that into its decimal equivalent to get my multiplier. So I divide by 100. So that gives me 0.755. Therefore, to find out the 75.5% of 300, I just multiply by the decimal 0.755. So 0.755 multiplied by 300. Take your calculator and type that in. And our answer comes out to be 226.5. Okay. So a much quicker method of finding percentages using a multiplier, lending itself to when we have a calculator, particularly, it makes things like finding 75.5% much quicker than finding, let's say, 70% and then finding 4% and 0.5% and adding them all together. So a much quicker method.